Hello everyone and welcome to iReadit, bringing you your daily dose of the internet for Monday, September 25th, 2017. I am Michael Schwahn.
And I'm Nathan Wood.
Please remember, everybody, that you can help support our show by going to patreon.com/dailyinternet. One big thank you to Adam Weinberg for subscribing to our Patreon as of yesterday. Thank you very much, good sir.
Thank you, Adam.
Otherwise, you please be sure to try to catch the show if you would like Monday through Thursday live on Facebook at 6 p.m. Alaska time. You can always catch the videos on the backlog on Facebook as well as on YouTube, and the show is always available for download via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play if you would like to take it with you on the go. Nathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I had an early lunch and that kind of upset me, but I just really like taking my lunches unnaturally late.
Because then when you get back, work feels like it's basically over?
Yeah, on top of that, I feel like I do more work in the morning than in the afternoon.
Yeah, once you've eaten, you're all lethargic and you just want to nap.
Yeah, and most of the time I nap on my lunch break anyways without eating, so like I just wake up and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to be here.
I wish I could still be napping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I understand. My day has been pretty decent overall. I really enjoy my new job as a paralegal, but man, some of the stuff, it just like perplexes me in strange ways of like, it's just more of like office etiquette crap that doesn't entirely make sense.
Yeah?
Yeah. I realize.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get into the legal terms.
Yeah, well, and it's not even just the legal terms. It's like the areas of how something should be done. For example, like the one that confused me today was like writing audit letters, and they're like, we want you to be as consistent as possible, and it's like, okay, that's understandable. That's what people have just reiterated for like ever, is just keep being consistent. And it's like, okay, I'll keep being consistent. And then so I just used the language for the audit letter that we've been using for the last like 5 years, and then they're like, that language feels so static. It's also the language of the paralegal before you. Why don't you use your own language? Yep.
About that, dickheads.
And I was like, but what? But you said be consistent. Yeah, how about you write it your own way, though? And I was like, I would write it this way, though. And they're like, well, I mean, that's the canned language. Why don't... Actually, how about instead you write it how you would say it if you were talking to them on the phone? Okay, that seems real unprofessional, but okay. And so I did it, and then they're like, and they came back, and they're like, yeah, I really like this. I like the way this is written a lot. It sounds good. How do you feel about it? And I told them, I was like, I don't have a problem writing it this way. It's just, I feel like as a state office that is sending out, professional work, we should use professional language and consistency in that language.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to sit there and in your writing be like, yo, this shit's whack because...
Yeah, and I was like, I feel like you should use those consistent paragraphs for stuff. That's why we have form letters, because it should always be the same. And they're like, yeah, well, just write it this way. Just for all of your letters, write all of them this way, and it'll be fine. Just do this way because we like it better, but be consistent about doing it this way.
That's dumb.
Okay. Whatever you say, good sir. I will do it that way then.
I mean, there's not much room for arguing, I guess.
No, and it's literally like, tell me how to do my job, and I'll do my job. Like, I might question it from time to time, but I'll do my job. I need a button. 10. Hikers rescued after becoming too stoned to hike down mountain.
This is submitted by Or To Go to R Not The Onion.
This has become a little bit of a divisive issue for people, and basically what it is this is in the United Kingdom. Over in England, 4 hikers were rescued from a mountain after they climbed to the top of it and smoked a whole bunch of cannabis, and then were incapable of walking, so they called for help. In which then the rescue efforts were sent out, the men were recovered and brought back, and people were like, there's two sides to this, and the reason that it initially became an issue is because the police department itself posted about it on their Facebook. They said that persons phoning the police because they are stuck on a mountain after taking cannabis, and that we are now having to deploy mountain rescue, air support, and ambulance to rescue them. Words fail us. And so there was two sides to this, of that it is absolutely absurd that volunteers have to go up there to rescue these people. They should be fined or something like that. And then on the other side of it was, why is it so disgraceful that these people are asking for help? Like, is it purely because of cannabis? Let's not pretend like that's the only intoxicant that people take.
Yeah, fuck. If people went up there, got too drunk, and called for help, no one's gonna be too fucking complaining unless there's cans everywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't know where I sit on it. Like, because part of me is like, yeah, I mean, maybe you should be more careful in what you're doing and where you're doing it. That's why, you should get shit-faced at home.
Which is why in a lot of places, in order to smoke marijuana, you have to be in your home. Which is also why in a lot of places, in order to drink, you need to be either in a bar or at your home, because public intoxication is illegal in a lot of places.
And dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean...
So, the way I feel is people shouldn't be upset that they had to get rescued for smoking marijuana. People shouldn't be upset about this in general, because that's what their job is. Their job is to go and save people. I feel that this is just almost unnecessary to be brought up, because we don't go around and write articles about people being too drunk to get down and calling for help.
Right. And I guess the difference is that, like, I don't... If someone gets drunk on the mountain, like, maybe this still would have been a thing, but I feel like a lot of times if you make that comparison, people are like, well, they're just drunk on the street. You just throw them in a car and take them somewhere.
Shit, I feel happier that these people were stoned, because a lot of the times it's easier to call places when you're stoned than when you're drunk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like, because when, I read this about 4 hours ago, and even when I read it, I was like, I don't know. Like, because there is the expense and the time that is lost in terms of, because the rescue efforts are, rescuers are all volunteers, but their equipment and stuff, it still takes time and money. And, I mean, I might be a little bit upset if, like, something bad happened that wasn't able to be addressed because of these people taking up time.
Sure, like if there was a much more pressing issue than saving a bunch of stoners off the top of
A mountain.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know. I don't know, because part of me is like, yeah, I understand why you're upset, but also it's like, at least they were able to call for help. Something bad could have happened if they didn't. And while maybe they did get themselves into that situation, like, I don't know, people are stupid.
It's true. People are stupid. I don't feel like we should be angry at these people for calling for help. Maybe wasting time, sure. But they needed help at that time. We're not going to leave them stranded on a fucking mountain. We're not going to leave a bunch of drunk people stranded on a mountain.
Well,
we're not going to leave a bunch of people high on other things stranded on a mountain.
Here's the other thing, is like in the article, it's like, it mentions that no charges have been brought against them. And I would never charge these guys with any, I don't know if there's a crime that they could be charged with, but I wouldn't charge them a crime.
Public intoxication, or a lot of places you're not allowed to smoke weed outside. So if they're smoking outside in a place like that, then
I could see fining them. I could see them going, okay, well, you weren't. I mean, it's no different than like if you have to be taken to the hospital. Like, you're not charged a crime for having to be taken to the hospital. They charge you money for, what time and equipment was used at the hospital. So in this case, if they had to, run a helicopter for an hour and, pay 2 people to go up there and get the people down, then, whatever that equals, charge them that.
Sure.
And, a rescue fee. And I know that sounds weird, but it's no different than medical bills. Not really.
I still think it's kind of batshit insane that we have to charge for an ambulance ride. At least that much that we charge up here.
Oh, I understand. I'm just making the comparison.
Right.
So, either way, they're all right. Good for them.
I'm glad.
Hope they had.
And I'm also glad that Zach's watching this on a computer.
Yeah, he's got his new shiny laptop.
9.
Jared Kushner used private email for White House business.
This was submitted by phelyan to our news.
And directly related to this, Ivanka Trump used a personal email account for government work.
And this was submitted by Goya Bean to our politics.
So, I feel like the only reason we're talking about this is because of all of the huge ordeal around Hillary Clinton using a private email for all of her business, and how large of an issue was that was during the 2016 presidential election. So what this is that both Jared Kushner and his wife Ivanka Trump, or Ivanka Kushner, depending on how you want to refer to her, both used private emails for some of their professional work involved with the White House. Jared Kushner used his private email a lot during the campaign, which I feel like is okay, and then has used it intermittently since then, since they actually got into the White House. Of that, though, from what the information that has been revealed is that none of it contained any confidential, private, or sensitive information, and was more along the lines of like planning, of like, you know, using his personal email to set up a meeting at this time and stuff along those lines. And a lot is also said for Ivanka Trump's at the same time. Most of her emails, again, none of the information that we have been given publicly has anything that pertains to a confidential, a private, or a sensitive matter. Instead, it was talking about like her wanting to get organizations towards, like, you know, her doing her work towards women empowerment and stuff like that. Which does involve her position at the White House, which is...
But it's not, like, sensitive information.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, since it's not sensitive information, I feel like we shouldn't give a fuck about this.
The only reason that it is could be considered a problem, one is, I mean, people slam Clinton so much, so people feel like they need to slam, you know, someone on Trump's side for it. The other thing is that when it comes to Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, if it is on a private email server, that is not covered under the Freedom of Information Act. So, like, things that are all on a state email or a federal email, under Freedom of Information, though that information can be gotten, whether it's by the public or whether it's by, you know, state officials during an investigation. If it's on a private email server, that doesn't fall under the FOIA. So if there was any reason that we needed that information, they could essentially stonewall it because it's on a private email server.
Okay. I can understand that, kind of, vaguely. I'm not a very tech-savvy individual.
It's not even about tech savvy. It's about legality. I mean, there's the like your state email, for instance. Whatever your private email is, imagine using that for your state work.
Oh, I don't want people referring to me as Bimmenstein when it comes to my job.
Well, and it's not about how they refer to it. It's a matter of your state email is part of the state's archive, essentially. It is the state's information. You, as Nathan Wood, do not have a whole lot of level of control over the privacy of your state email. Your personal email, however, is not very well protected, but is significantly better protected from people looking at it, essentially, than your state email is. So if you used your personal email for state work, you could do state work that people wouldn't be able to look at.
Okay, sure. I get why people are upset about it. Me, myself, I'm not upset. I think that we dodged a bullet, and I think from now on they should probably stop doing that.
Probably, and I mean, whether they do or don't, and one of the other things is that, like, as much as it is ingrained into our lives, I feel like technology, especially when it comes to like modern technology and email and stuff like that, is still a new thing, especially for a lot of the older generation. And so like you're talking about how you're not very tech savvy and you didn't quite have a grasp on what the difference was. Now imagine the people that are 50 years old and spent, 30 years without email.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on it, like, because, again, it depends on whether it becomes a problem or not. And it's one of those things of, like, maybe you should do the things so that it couldn't be a problem. But I also don't believe that these are the only two people in the entire federal government that have used a personal email for, official work. 3, if we include Clinton. I'm sure there's more.
I'm positive there's more. 100% positive. Just they haven't gotten caught yet.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it does come up, it might not matter either.
Mm-hmm.
So.
8.
Brazil's president approval rating plummets to 3.4%.
Oh, fuck. Submitted by Sure Do It to Our World News.
Yeah. So, Brazilian President Michael Temer, has just fallen through the floor. It hasn't even been very good anyway. Several months ago, it was all the way down to 10.3% and has dropped an additional, just shy of 7% since then. And the reason being is that he took office after the previous president passed away. And his term lasts until January of 2019, but since he's been in office, he has just been completely just slammed with charges of taking bribes, racketeering, obstruction of justice, and lots of things that are being pushed forward. And his goal, since he's been in office, is trying to pass through this austerity package. It's essentially like a budget plan, essentially, for the government, and it has a lot of opposition. And that, put alongside all of his corruption charges, just has made nobody like him.
Yeah, no, I can tell by the 3-point something approval rating. Even Trump has more than that.
And that's impressive.
Yeah.
Which, I have one friend in Brazil, and that they do nothing but complain.
Do they quay a lot?
No, they do not.
Oh, they don't quay.
No, they do not quay.
That was my favorite meme from several years ago.
That's fair.
7.
French tourist prevents a bus with 21 passengers from plunging over a cliff in the Austrian Alps.
This is submitted by Vranek to Our World News.
So, what happened was, this young person, does it have the name? Yes. No, they're not young. A 65-year-old Frenchman was sitting at the front of the bus, quite close to the driver, when the driver, who was 76, who had been feeling ill, passed out and collapsed in the driver's seat. In which point the 65-year-old man saw this, jumped out of his seat, and managed to grab the wheel and slam on the brake as this bus crashed through a wooden roadside guardrail, and then hung onto a tree branch, hanging over a 100-meter or 320-foot drop.
Huh.
Yeah. Everyone got off the bus. There have been 5 people that have been taken. 4 people were taken to the hospital. None of them seem to be drastically injured. Just got to make sure they're okay between like whiplash and stuff like that. And everyone's okay.
That's fucking crazy.
Although
that guy's a hero.
Looking at the picture for the bus, it's not a sheer cliff. It doesn't drop straight off. It's a very, very steep decline. Which, I mean, if the bus started to roll, would be really bad, I suppose. But the potential for it to be catastrophic, I do question just a bit because of where they were going off the edge at. But, I mean, it still could have been quite bad.
Yeah, I'm fairly happy with this outcome overall.
Yeah, this is optimal.
Yeah, no, this is pretty optimal. And, I mean, they didn't have very many people who needed medical attention too, so there's that too.
Yeah, so power to you, guy. Way to be very quick and be able to actually stop things before they could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. You're on the ball there.
6.
If data is the new oil, are tech companies robbing us blind?
This is submitted by Mavia to Our Futurology.
So the idea is that if you own property and it finds out that there's oil in the area, you get a share of those oil royalties, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's some rules around it, but for the most part, if you own, let's say you own the land that your house is on, and then, they drill over there and they see that underneath your house, even if it's like a mile down underneath your house is part of that oil pocket, you get some of the profit from that oil, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're taking the oil that's underneath your land. Now, the question that is being posed here is that a large number of companies make a large amount of profit over selling data. And what this data is like contact information. So think like your name and your email address. And then some companies are also selling like your habits. Like Facebook is definitely collecting and is most definitely selling information like what you normally view, what things are popular, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then
how about the fucking ads that pop up that are like spot on for something you were just talking about like 2 minutes ago?
Yeah, and then the question is, since they're selling your information, do you deserve part of the profit that they get for selling your information?
I would say so, because it's your information.
And now
There's royalties, right? Think about it in the form of music. Like, if someone's purchasing your song, you get royalty payments for that song.
Here's where the difference comes in, right? Is that, like, you buy the land. Tim points out that it depends on who owns the mineral rights. So if you own the mineral rights to the land, then that allows you to get those royalties. If you don't, then you don't. So with oil, if you own the land and you have the mineral rights, that is yours. If you wanted to, you could say, you know what, don't pay me royalties, take the oil, However, with this information, most of it you have willingly given to them. When you sign up for Facebook, you say, yeah, this is my name.
The terms of service.
Mm-hmm. And then and then they say, do you agree to all our the end user license agreement, the EULA or the TOS, the terms of service? And then you click, yeah, I would like to use your product, so I agree. And in that, I'm sure somewhere in there it says we may or may not sell your information to third-party companies, et cetera, et cetera. So then the question becomes is you willingly gave it to receive something in return, in this case a free service like, searching on Google or your Facebook account. Is there any right that, whether there actually is or not, do you feel as though when they sell your data for however much money, should you get any of it?
I guess legally, because of the terms of service, and most people just clicking yes, I agree, then technically, legally, they shouldn't have any rights to it, right?
Right.
But if everybody had to sit there and read every single terms of service that they ever had to click yes to, people would still be reading terms of services this very moment. Like, they wouldn't get any sleep. They would just continue to be reading. And they deliberately write these terms of services incredibly long, specifically to hide shit like this in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, and I am asking for more government overreach, I feel like the government should be like, hey, that's kind of fucked up. You're not allowed to do, selling of information without people expressly saying I agree, and not just the terms of service, but like in a more upfront thing about it. Because it's like, I don't know. It's like hiding ingredients in a type of food that is like, okay, so Tim's like saying it's terms of service, right? Yes, this is their terms of service. I feel like it should not be allowed in a terms of service,
or at least not hidden in one, is what you mean.
Exactly.
Like,
put it blatantly right in the front at the very, very top. Hey, we're gonna sell your information.
Or not even put it in the terms of service, like.
Yes, it is a legally binding document, Tim. We should read that shit, but nobody does because nobody has time to read a fucking 20, 30-page terms of service and then click yes and then go into their page and be like, oh, hey, I want to use this game, this small app. I'm going to click this app. Then that app has a 30-page terms of service. Almost everything you sign up for, almost everything you click, everything you download as an app has a terms of service.
Yep.
And like 90% of that is not read.
Yep. It's literally a box of do you agree to our terms of service? You click the box and then you click agree.
And I feel like, I don't know, terms of services are kind of fucked up in and of itself because, like, all right, so
here's what
maybe not. You're agreeing to their service, yes. You're like, hey, I want this. I know what, this is I know, what they're wanting to do here, right? But not a lot of people know actually what they want to do.
Well, two things on this. One, Tim, because I know there's a delay, so I'll state this first. Do you read every single terms of service for every single app and everything you use on your phone? All of them? Like, you straight up read from top to bottom your entire terms of service? Question mark.
One of those terms of services could say, hey, now we own your firstborn child.
The other thing is I think what the difference that that Nathan was trying to get at with the government mandate or the government rule or however you want to describe it is that instead of putting the terms of service at the top, it's putting the we'll sell your data at the top of the terms of service, instead, like, when you're installing an app or something like that, it'd be like, would you like to send information to such and such about your usage? And you can say no. Would you like to do this? No. Would you like to install Microsoft Bing? Fuck you, no. And then another question could be, do you give us permission to collect and sell your data to third parties? Yes or no. And, I mean, it would be that easy in terms of making that a little bit more obvious to people. Now, that said, there'd be an immense amount of pushback on...
Well, of course. I mean, there's pushback with the FCC and everything.
Well, I mean, there'd just be immense pushback from those companies because they do make especially with, like, Facebook and Google, they make their money from two places, advertising and selling data. That's where their money comes from. You don't pay for Facebook. You don't pay for Google. You don't pay for YouTube. I mean, I guess unless you have like YouTube Red, but you don't pay for those things. And that's where that agreement comes in, is you willingly give them that information in return for the service.
I don't know. I still think it's fucked up, but whatever.
And there have been cases though where people have made that argument and won, Nathan, of there was some messed up stuff in the terms of service that ended up being pretty nefarious. People made that argument, and it's like, even though they agree to it in this day and age, yeah, people just auto-agree to that stuff because they assume that you're not being dickbags, and people have won because of that. Because it's like, yeah, you can't expect, not, especially because it's all written in legal speak. And, you know, the common man will not understand legalese.
Right. I agree more with those people who are like, hey, let's hope you're not being dickbags, and just click yes, because there's no fucking way I'm sitting there and reading all of those damn terms of services,
well, and even
so that
if
I can
did...
selectively choose which thing is going to sell my data or not.
Well, also, even if you did read the terms of service, there's a very good chance you wouldn't understand most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not written so that you'll understand it.
Not to mention, like, there could be a service that you absolutely need to use in order to survive, some form of medical service that says, hey, we can sell your data. Maybe you're not in agreement to that, but you have to do it in order to survive.
I mean, you can still say no.
Yeah, I mean, I would say no, but I have a death wish.
That's fair.
5,
Trump's failed boycott leads to the most watched Sunday football in 7 years.
This was submitted by Music for Earthworms to Art Politics.
So if you need caught up real quick, Donald Trump since Friday has been tweeting about and speaking out about the NFL. And this is specifically the idea of NFL players that are kneeling, sitting during the national anthem. This all spurred back from the original thing with Colin Kaepernick way back when, and he was playing for the Steelers, I think.
I don't know, but I'm so glad he's dealing with this and not things like Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it great? Our president's priorities are top notch. So with that, he was saying, you know, that anyone who kneels or doesn't stand for the national anthem should just be fired on the spot. And you know that until the NFL cleans up their act and stops allowing players to do this, that us as fans and as viewers should boycott the NFL. And he kind of went forward from there. And this has just kind of been the issue that people wanted to talk about the last few days, which baffles me because there's other things that matter way more than this. But anyway, and it went forward from there. The NFL, the leader, well, not the leader, the president of the NFL union stated and said that they will not be firing I mean, if the owners want to, they have that right to, but the NFL does not condone those actions because they defend their players' rights to speak out how they want. On top of that, and a large number of the NFL the teams, players, owners, and stuff took their own actions in their own way regarding this.
And not just the NFL. It's happened it's been popping up in all forms of sports. Like, it was happening in baseball recently, even though, actually, no, never mind. It's happening in baseball. I was going to say, even though the owner of all of NASCAR was like, nope, fuck it, we're not having anyone kneel during the pledge. And I was mixing NASCAR with baseball in my head. Yeah. But baseball players started doing it too.
There was two parts to that. The first one with the NFL was that there was owners of entire teams that were going down with their team, and the entire team was kneeling during the national anthem as a statement. There were some teams that instead of, because the problem is with situations like this, any action becomes a statement. So there were some teams that in an attempt to not be involved with it, their team they stayed in the locker room for the national anthem, which I feel is the worst possible decision.
Yeah, I can also agree.
Of like, they're trying to take inaction by removing themselves from the situation, but that alone has a statement that you are making.
Yeah.
So And then on NASCAR, there was two owners of several different teams that said, if you do not stand during the national anthem, you will be fired as soon as the anthem is concluded. But one of the largest names in NASCAR, Mr. Dale Earnhardt, defended people's abilities to do so, basically saying that you have the right to. Who did he quote? I forget, but basically it was like, if you do not give people the right to peacefully protest, then violent protest becomes inevitable.
Yeah, no, definitely. I forget who said that, but I definitely agree with that statement. Wait, Mark Twain?
Maybe? I don't know.
Oh, shit, I don't remember.
I mean, I can try and look it up real quick.
I don't really care. Well,
JFK.
JFK, okay. Either way, like, he's absolutely right. If you're... I feel like it's incredibly stupid that the United States is so divisive on this topic specifically.
Well, and you and I both shared a post earlier today that I feel addresses it quite well, of that patriotism is not forcing people to stand for the flag. Patriotism is building a country that makes people want to stand for the flag.
It's exactly 100% the sum of this.
And, like, I mean, it definitely irks me when I see people that do not respect the national anthem, do not respect the flag. But on that same level, though, I understand why they're upset and respect their ability to be upset and recognize that what they're upset over and why they are not standing is an issue that needs to be addressed, although there's not much that I can do about it.
See, I don't feel like it irks me. And this is why. I feel like they are allowed to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that in their doing this, they are being peaceful, which is the best, like, the way to protest. Like, you have to be peaceful. Now, if they were going around and burning flags during the Pledge of Allegiance, then sure. That would be kind of fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
They're not stomping on flags either. They're simply taking a knee during the Pledge of Allegiance.
Also, and on that same thing I want to point out right now is that in several areas throughout history, kneeling is a sign of respect.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels odd to me that that is considered so disrespectful.
I feel like I don't feel like he has a lack of respect for the flag or the Pledge of Allegiance. He just...
Or the anthem or the country. It is...
It is these things represent, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And these things are the ideas of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem that they are having is that they do not feel like those things are being met.
Those values?
Those values are being met, especially for people of color.
Sure. And it's true.
You can greatly fucking argue that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And, like, the ones that are like, no, they're just complaining, like, no, it's true. It's a true thing. Just because it's not something that is evident to you does not mean that it doesn't exist.
I'm happy that these people are doing this because they could be doing much worse.
And because hopefully it does bring additional attention to these actual issues.
Shit, it is. I mean, that's the reason why we're talking about this.
But my hope is that, because we just made that transition of talking about what the issue is, of why this is happening. I hope that more people will make that transition, that connection, to talk about why it's a thing, not purely that it's a thing.
Right. Stop looking at, oh, hey, that thing is super offensive. Start looking at why.
Yeah.
Why is that offensive? Why do I find this offensive?
Mm-hmm.
4.
Equifax hired. Try again. Equifax acquired an identity protection company before making the hack public to profit from the theft.
This is submitted by Canned Raw Crawfish to Our Technology.
Yep, and it's not even, like, subtle, by the way. So they've known about the hack for quite some time. They've known about the hack for about a year. For about half a year. They revealed it in early September. In early August, they purchased an ID watchdog company. Well, I mean, they acquired ID Watchdog is the name of the company, which is a business based in Denver that will continue to operate through Denver that is purely for identity theft protection.
That's fucking cool.
Isn't it great? Isn't it just so skeevy?
That is, it's like, oh hey, I'm gonna put out a bunch of insurance on my car. Whoops!
Yeah.
I didn't know my car was broken into like 2 nights ago.
No clue on that one. Yeah, it's so shady and skeevy, and like, I got nothing besides like Equifax. Holy crap! Just stop for a while, okay?
So like maybe they were thinking, oh hey, this thing got pretty bad. Let's get this company to help people. But I don't feel so.
No, I feel like they're just jerks.
3,
Target to raise minimum wage to $11 per hour, promising $15 by 2020.
This was submitted by Another Chance to our news.
So I know that they mean $15 per hour, but my brain definitely just said, "We'll give you $15 in the next 3 years. Don't worry." Like just $15. Not.
I mean, with nowadays is minimum wage, it's not far off.
Yeah, that's about right. So Target did recently announce that they are moving its minimum wage from its current $10 an hour to $11 an hour. This puts them as a company establishing its own minimum wage at one of the highest. Wal-Mart recently increased its minimum wage up to $10 an hour. They're now being outclassed by Target, so maybe that'll create like a little, competition between them, although I'm not sure that it matters or they care. It just, makes them look good and hope that more people will shop there because people think that they're better. So either way, this isn't part of any government mandate, whether on a state or federal level. This is just the companies themselves taking that initiative.
I am a fan of raising minimum wage. And I know there's a lot of pushback for it because, oh, hey, these people shouldn't be being paid $15 an hour flipping burgers when I get paid $15 an hour to replace engines. So, well, then you both have a problem. You're both being underpaid, and one of you is being sold into thinking that that is an accurate amount of pay for you.
Yep, and here's the issue where it comes from me. And it's not that I'm opposed to a higher minimum wage. It is that raising the minimum wage does not inherently fix the problem that you're trying to solve with raising the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. Is that so? Because when you raise the minimum wage, the average cost of everything goes up. Because it costs more to pay people, so they charge more to be able to pay those people. All you're doing is making the numbers larger. But here's where the problem comes in, is I feel like, and completely separate from minimum wage entirely, everyone should be paid a living wage. Like, there's, you see it shared every now and then on Facebook. It's like, you need to make like $40,000 a year to be able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment on your own in, Minnesota or whatever. I feel like you should have enough money to pay for a roof over your head and food on your table. Anything beyond that is different, in my opinion. No matter where you work, you should have the money to afford a roof and afford food. Whether it's a nice place, that's questionable. But you should be able to afford a 1-bedroom apartment and any utilities, obviously, that are associated with that.
I'm a little disagree with you here. I feel like your living space should be livable.
Well, yeah, of course. It has to be a habitable space.
Right.
So, but it doesn't need to be like a 3-bedroom, 4-bathroom place. A 1-bedroom apartment and food is what minimum wage should cover, because it should be
for you living on your own.
Yeah, for you. Like the idea of when people are like, well, that's why you just get roommates. It's like, you shouldn't have to get roommates. Now, that said, you necessarily shouldn't be able to afford a 3-bedroom place by yourself, but you should be able to afford a roof on your own. However, that's part of what trying to raise the minimum wage does, is allow people to be able to do more with less money. There is a problem in that, though, and I remember this very distinctly from when I was working at Brahms. I had worked really hard at Brahms, which was a fast food joint in the Central South. And I had worked hard enough to get a raise, and at the time, minimum wage in Oklahoma was, I think, $6.50 an hour, and I had gotten up to $8.25. Okay? No, I had gotten up to $8.50. And then about 6, and I was like, yeah, I can start, making progress, and then it was about, I don't know, 6 months later, minimum wage in Oklahoma went from $6.50 to $7.75, which good jump, $1.25 extra in minimum wage. My wage at $8.50 stayed at $8.50, and then because minimum wage went up, everything got more expensive, so my money now meant less.
So
So
I got dicked out when minimum wage rose up here. I had made a $1.50 raise from minimum wage initially when I first started working at a place, which was $7.75.
Mm-hmm.
When minimum wage rose up here, I was already the $1.50 ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
He rose everybody's minimum wage up, but it counted as a 50-cent pay dock for me because he rose my wage up, but to match everybody else's.
Yep. And that's the problem with just raising minimum wage, is that it doesn't actually solve a problem. And also, people that make just a little bit more than minimum wage get hurt by it. And like you said earlier, I mean, you can just say, in general, everyone's not getting paid enough. Especially when you make the comparison of, like the EMTs that make like $16 an hour, and it's like, that doesn't seem cool.
No, they need to be making a lot more.
And they should. And that's part of the other issue, is that a lot of people just aren't paid fairly, and that's not tied directly to minimum wage. And so what you end up doing is the people that aren't making between the threshold of minimum wage and what it's going to go up to, those people just get hurt by it. So, I understand the desire to increase minimum wage, but that's not the solution to what you're trying to accomplish.
I feel like it's the beginning of the solution.
Maybe, and maybe it's a really good Band-Aid that will just help for a while, but it's not going to solve the problem. And I really feel like all it does is just make the numbers bigger. Same ratios, it's literally a weird form of inflation.
See, the idea with raising minimum wage, though, is that everything doesn't inflate except for minimum wage.
That's not how that
Which
works, though.
I know isn't supposed to be how it works, but in a lot of places, you can... Well, not a lot of places, sure, but in some places, you can raise minimum wage, and there will be no negative repercussions when it comes to people... when it comes to changing of prices, because they can still afford those items to be sold at that price. Now, would they want those items to be sold at that price? No, they're going to gouge you.
Well, they don't
That's
gouge.
another problem, is that when minimum wage is raised, people start gouging.
The people start charging more.
They realize people have more money. And what needs to happen is, I don't know, some people need to get together and tell people who run very large businesses to stop being dickheads.
But that's the problem, though, is that they won't. They'll be like, oh, it cost us more to have people working now, so we'll charge more for our stuff. In which case, you didn't do anything. Now, in some cases, the minimum wage goes up more than the comparative cost of things. But then, while that does help the minimum wage people, that's where that pain comes in of anyone who makes more than minimum wage. And I'm not talking about these people that make like $120,000 a year. I'm saying if, instead of looking at it per hour, if you make minimum wage is $25,000 and this person over here makes $30,000, and then minimum wage goes up to $27,500, and then everything gets a little bit more expensive in comparison, the person that was making $30 doesn't make any more and just get their dollar buys them less now.
The problem with raising minimum wage is that you can't just raise minimum wage. You need to blanket raise everything. People shouldn't be paid $16 an hour to be a fucking paramedic.
No.
They should be paid like $25, $30 an hour. But people assume that, hey, I've been working shit minimum wage jobs, $7, my entire life.
So
now
16 is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened to me. I was making $7.75. Then I started working at the Boys and Girls Club. I was happy there, making $11 an hour. That ended up not being enough.
No.
I now make $18 an hour, and that's still not enough.
Yep. And because through their research or whatever, in the state of Alaska, a living wage is $52,000 a year.
Can you do that per hour?
Yeah, give me just a second. Let me pull up a calculator. Because
it's baffling how greedy people can get. Not only that, but how these greedy people then, I don't know, essentially trick or brainwash. It's like being in a very bad relationship. They tell you that something is right because they say it's right, and you're just going to believe it.
So, and I'm also not sure if that $52,000 a year is before or after taxes. But anyway, assuming you work 40 hours a week, every single week, 52 weeks a year, that is 2,080 hours in a year that you work. 52,000 divided by 2,080 is $25 an hour.
I have to be making $25 an hour to be living on my own.
So you would need to make 50% more than what you make now.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, that puts you at like $27 an hour. But yeah, so your overtime, well, you don't get overtime, but what your overtime would be, time and a half, is what is considered a living wage. I'm a paralegal, and I still don't technically make a living wage.
Isn't that fucking sad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people think raising minimum wage is the real problem. It's not. It's that everybody is not being paid enough.
Yeah. So, well, or alternatively, you can just say stuff is too expensive. If like
that also is fairly true.
Like if there was a way to just force things to be cheaper, then you could say you're making enough.
It's just in a capitalistic society, price gouging is not considered to be the worst if you can play it off as if it wasn't price gouging.
Yeah, if it was a cost.
2.
Japanese scientists have invented a new loop-based quantum computing technique.
Ooh, this was submitted by Mavi at Our Science.
It's really cool, needs some work. So
yeah?
What it is...
Well, I mean, they just invented it. Of course it's going to need some work.
So what it is we talked recently about trying to read light, right? And the problem with that is the speed that light happens. So what they did instead is they made a loop that the light could go through. So even if it is moving extremely quickly, you can read it because it'll come by more than once, right? Sure. So what this allows them to do is that in normal quantum computers, even those using superconducting circuits, which are, straight up on-off circuits, some of them are maybe able to handle a dozen qubits, which is, or quantum bits. Which is the basic unit of information in quantum computing. So think of it as like a 1 or a 0, except instead of a 1 or a 0, it's a qubit, which involves light instead of, on or off electricity. This new approach will allow a single circuit to process more than 1 million qubits, in theory.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it is immensely faster than even the best quantum computers we have already. Here's the problem, is that you can build a quantum computer... I mean, not you, but a quantum computer...
How dare you? Everyone in this chat room can technically build a quantum computer.
If you have the money. And that's where I was getting at, but we're all broke.
So didn't we just talk about this last one?
Yeah, we just did talk about this. But, so, I mean, the problem is that with current quantum computers, they're not massive. This quantum computer, this quantum circuit, one requires 500 mirrors and lenses and occupies a space 4.2 meters long and 1.5 meters wide to handle one pulse. Now, that one pulse can do a ton, but that's also huge. I mean, it's not huge. I mean, it's like the size of a room. But
well, okay. So they have just invented this.
Yes.
When computers were just invented, it took a fucking room to process what we would regularly process as a fucking JPEG.
I mean, it took a warehouse to build a calculator, so.
Exactly. So this is going to take a bit, but holy shit, can I not wait for these fucking quantum computers.
Yeah, and it's not even the size of a room. I mean, I guess, depending on the room. It's about 14 feet by about 4 feet is the size of this thing.
That's about half of this room, I'd say.
I mean, most people are about 3 feet wide. So if you think...
Not big.
So, if you take a little bit extra on your sides, and then stack, 2.5 people tall, you're there. So,
and then you would just have to cube it.
I mean, it's probably around the size of, like, a limo, I guess, would be a good way to think of it.
That's still fairly large.
Yeah. I mean...
But at the same time... I can imagine a world where this kind of technology is going to be made into phones.
Well, and the other thing on that is that now that they have figured out how to do it and they've resolved all the problems with doing it, they can try to actually figure out a scheme that will correct any of its errors and then figure out a way to make it smaller. Like, can we do this? Yes, cool. Now how can we keep on making this smaller and it still function properly?
Right, and that's really just technology in general.
Yep.
Even phones. Like, I'm really happy that we're finally past actually, not really. I was gonna say I'm really happy we're finally past the age of ever shrinking phones, but in reality, they're just getting thinner now instead of.
I have the 7 Plus, and I'm pretty happy with its size.
I'm just saying, I have had an iPhone and I've had an Android, and I prefer the size of the Androids immensely more to the regular iPhone, because the iPhone is a lot smaller and I don't like that.
That's fair.
It makes it harder to play games. It makes it more annoying to read.
Have you tried the Plus?
Why would I?
I was just asking, purely in terms of size.
No, I have not. I have not held it in my hand.
Okay.
So I'll hold yours eventually.
Cool. Yes, hold mine, Nathan. North Korea accuses United States of declaring war.
This was submitted by Oko163 to Our World News.
Literally just say he started it is literally what this is. Like, it's so ridiculous.
They're literally pointing fingers. They flew airplanes too close to us. He started it.
So anyway, this is a statement coming from North Korea's foreign minister who accused United States President Donald Trump declaring war. This entire accusation is based on one tweet from Donald Trump that took place at 7 p.m. on September 23rd, so 2 days ago. And what it was is, I just heard Foreign Minister of North Korea speak at United Nations. If he echoes thoughts of Little Rocket Man, they won't be around much longer. So, I mean, that is definitely a threat, but that is not a declaration of war.
He's been doing those kinds of threats for months.
And so is North Korea. So with that, though, they're saying that that is an open declaration of war and that they now have the right to shoot down U.S. warplanes even if they don't enter North Korea airspace.
I feel like they're wrong.
I feel like they're wrong, too. I also feel like that would be a horrible mistake because,
Just because Trump's a dickbag doesn't mean that anything he says is credible.
Well, and also, the other thing on that is we've talked about it before, of that North Korea will lose. Like, they may get a couple good hits in, a couple good places of damage in, but they will lose.
Yeah. That's not the problem, though. The problem is that it's not the fact that they're going to lose, right? I don't care that they're going to lose. The fact is, we are sending people to fight other people over two dudes bitching at each other.
Yeah.
And, one country making nuclear missiles.
Anywho, hey, Nathan.
Yeah.
Oh.
9.
Nope.
I'm Mr.
There it is.
B6. Look at me.
What'd you care about in the last 72 hours?
There's three things.
Okay.
One, Anthony Weiner gets 21 months in prison for sexting with a teenager.
Yep, saw that.
So I'm glad that he's going to prison, but I don't know about 21 months.
Maximum sentence was 10 years. He pled guilty, and prosecutors with the guilty plea maximum was 2 years. Judge gave him 21 months.
Yeah, I don't know about that judge, but I would have much rather enjoyed 2 years as a sentence.
I mean, it's only 3 months shy of 2 years.
That's fair. I hate how they fucking do that. They're like, let's make it seem like a much bigger number than it is by doing it in months.
That's fair. What else?
The other thing is, today is Mark Hamill's birthday.
Oh, that's cool. Happy birthday, Mark Hamill.
66. I also found out, I didn't actually know, it didn't connect to me, that he did the voice for Firelord Ozai. And I never connected.
Cool.
And then the other thing is, I got a cat.
Is it there with you?
No, it's I'm not allowing it in this room at the moment because my lizard cage doesn't have a top.
That's fair. Okay. Acceptable.
So I will eventually be able to bring him in here when I implement the new lizard cage, but I will be bringing in my little buddy Alphonse for everyone to see.
I want to see this cat.
His name is Alphonse. We call him Al or Alf, Alfie, Fonz, Fonzie, Al Dente.
The fawns.
Yeah,
Sure.
we call him all of these.
I have 3 things as well, but I'm actually going to hold them off. They're not terribly important in terms of timing, so I'll probably save them for tomorrow. The reason being is we were at 55 minutes, so let's go ahead and get the hell out of here.
No, that's fair.
Everybody, if you would like to help support us, we would be immensely grateful. There's multiple ways to do so. Patreon.com/dailyinternet. If you would like to support us monetarily, that is the best way to help the show grow, because money helps a lot. We've talked a lot about how broke everyone is, and money helps us immensely. And if you can spare $1 a month, then please send it our way. Otherwise, follow and share us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All of those are at iReaditCast. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. That helps other people find the show. Otherwise, if you have something you want to say or a story you want us to talk about, even if it isn't recent, send it to us in an email, which is feedback.ireadit@gmail.com, or call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. You can follow me on social media at Schwahn Michael and Nathan at Bimmenstein. And that is it, everybody. There's your 355th dose of the internet. I am Michael Schwahn.
And I'm Nathan Wood.
And please remember, everybody,
Don't get eliminated!
have a good day, everyone.
Bye.